Discover how a hidden immigrant boy transformed the gold rush into an inspiring Levi's legacy. Mateo's heart raced as he weaved through the bustling streets of Gold Creek. The dust kicked up around his tattered shoes, but he hardly noticed. His eyes were fixed on the hopeful glimmer of the golden nuggets that had brought hundreds of men to this dusty town. Each day, the cries of miners echoed in his ears, mixing with the smell of sweat and ambition, a symphony of dreams mixed with desperation. He was just a boy, an immigrant from a far-off land, but he felt the weight of the world resting on his small shoulders. His mother, a tireless woman with hands worn from labor, had always worked herself to the bone, scraping by for him and his elder brother, Carlos. Their shack barely clung to life, much like them. Despite their meager existence, Mateo held onto hope like a lifeline. He often daydreamed of a better life, of lifting his family out of poverty and creating a brighter future. But fate had its own plans. Then, tragedy struck like a sudden crack of thunder. One morning, his mother's cough turned into a relentless wheeze, and fever took hold of her. Without her to provide for them, every shutter creaked with the weight of despair. Mateo felt a tightness in his chest as the world around him blurred. What would happen to them? In a desperate search, Mateo stumbled upon an old trunk in the neighbor's yard. Inside, he found discarded fabrics, colorful yet frayed. A spark ignited within him. Could he transform this forgotten cloth into something new? With needle and thread barely grasped in his hands, he set to work, pouring his heart into each stitch. His early creations were simple, durable clothes for the miners who toiled through the blistering sun. At first, the people shrugged him off. They whispered behind hands, sneering at the immigrant boy trying to sew a place for himself in their world. Yet, Mateo persevered, carrying on his mother a spirit in each piece he crafted that as word spread. Something extraordinary happened. The miners began to notice the quality and practicality of his designs. Laughter, once reserved for mockery, transformed into admiration. One miner clasped Mateo's shoulder and exclaimed, "You've got a gift, boy!" Hope swelled as community loyalty began to bloom, each stitch connecting them tighter together. Just when it seemed his dreams were within reach, the local mining company came knocking, hungry for his talents. The promise of wealth glimmered like the very gold in the mountains, a chance to ascend from the dirt of his past. But behind that glitter, a storm brewed. Would they embrace him as one of their own, or would his immigrant status hold him back? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mateo's heart pulsed with decision as voices swirled around him. The townsfolk had gathered for a community gathering, eyes darting toward him. He could feel their whispers, their hopes, their skepticism, their fears swirling like dust in the minds. Caught between ambition and loyalty, he searched for his mother's smile in the crowd, wanting her guidance amidst the chaos. Just as he stood at the precipice of his dreams, a local miner met his gaze, nodding in silent support. Every ear leaned in close, every heart seemed to wait for his answer. Would he rise as a leader for his people, or retreat back into obscurity? Would he be the change he sought, or the boy forever haunted by his past? Mateo took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle around him. Silence hung in the air, thick with anticipation. He could almost hear the collective heartbeat of the crowd, their eyes wide with expectation. This was more than just a decision about work. It was about who he was and who he wanted to be. "Mateo!" Someone shouted from the back, breaking the spell of silence. "You've come this far. Don't let them push you aside." Encouraged by those words, he looked up and met the miner's gaze again. The burly man with a rough face showed warmth in his eyes, a silent promise of solidarity. This was not just about the clothes Mateo made. It was about lifting others with him. He could give the miners a chance to wear something that represented their hard work and resilience. Something that reflected their journey, just like his. "Listen," Mateo began, his voice shaking but resonant with determination. "I may be just a boy, but I see a dream in all of you. Every stitch, every thread, it connects us. I want to make clothes that not only protect you but show the world who we are. Together." He sensed the crowd shift as they absorbed his words. Curiosity mingled with encouragement, and he continued, feeling emboldened. "I'm proud of where I come from. I won't let my family's struggles define my future. I want to create something special, something for our community, no matter where we came from." Spilling forth was the brilliance of his vision. "Imagine durable clothes that not only work hard but also lift our spirits, that tell our stories." A ripple of excitement spread through the gathering. He could see the tiny embers of hope lighting in their eyes. Someone began to clap, then another joined in, until the applause grew, echoing against the dusty buildings. But even amidst that support, a knot twisted in his stomach. He knew the mining company was powerful, and their influence loomed over him like a dark cloud. The thought made him hesitate, but he pushed through. "But you all know they might not want me. An immigrant boy with big dreams? It's easy to cast me aside with the dirt." A murmur spread through the crowd. Mateo felt a chill run through him, mixing anxiety with resolve. But as he looked into the faces of the miners' men, who had dealt with their own struggles and rejections, he grasped the truth. They understood. "Think of it," he urged, his voice gaining strength. "If we work together, if we support each other, we can show them that we matter. That our stories, our labor, and our dreams count. We can create something powerful. We can make history." At that moment, a fire ignited in the hearts of those present. The crowd erupted into cheers, and their encouragement enveloped Mateo like a warm embrace. Hope pulsed as he sensed their unity. This wasn't just a personal venture anymore. It was a collective dream woven together by shared experience and unwavering spirit. Yet, just as the thrill surged through him, a shadow of doubt loomed heavy. What if the mining company rejected him? Would he be able to stand firm when faced with powerful forces pushing against him? Mateo stepped back, adrenaline coursing through him as he prepared to face the unknown. As he opened his mouth to continue, a figure at the edge of the gathering caught his eye, a tall man, dressed sharply in fine clothes, watching with keen interest. Who was he, and what role would he play in Mateo's fight for recognition? The man's presence sent a jolt of uncertainty into the air, tangling Mateo's thoughts. Was this the challenge he had been waiting for, or a setback that could crush his budding dreams? The answer loomed just out of reach. Mateo felt a chill run down his spine as he locked eyes with the man in fine clothes. The sharp blazer and polished shoes contrasted sharply with the worn boots of the miners around him. Doubts crept into Mateo's mind, twisting like the rushing water from a mountain spring. Who was this stranger, and why did he watch so intently? It felt as if this man held the key to Mateo's future, or perhaps a door to his downfall. The crowd's cheers faded into murmurs as Mateo shifted his focus back to the miners. Each face reflected hope and resilience. They had dared to dream, and now he must too. Taking a deep breath, he lifted his chin and spoke again, his voice steady. "This is our moment, not just for me, but for every one of you. We're not alone in this." The crowd responded, their enthusiasm rekindled. "Yes, together," someone shouted, igniting the spark once more. Mateo felt their energy wash over him, but the stranger's gaze remained unwavering. Mateo noticed how he seemed to measure the crowd, weighing their support. Was he here to mock, or perhaps to hinder their progress? There was something about him, a mixture of intrigue and mystery, that tugged at Mateo's curiosity. "Who are you?" Mateo asked, directing his question toward the stranger, his words bold despite the flutter in his stomach. "What do you want?" The man smiled subtly, an enigmatic twinkle in his eye. "Not what I want, but what you want, Mateo. The question is, how much do you want it?" He stepped closer, his presence commanding and smooth, like the silk of a well-made coat. From the corner of his eye, Mateo could see the miners exchanging worried glances. Their support for him was palpable, and he didn't want to betray their trust. "I want to create a legacy," he declared, sensing the urgency in the moment. "I want our stories told through the clothes we wear." The man nodded, as if Mateo's passion intrigued him. "Then you must understand the game you're playing. Dreaming isn't enough. You must prepare for what comes next." His voice was laced with challenge. Mateo hesitated, the weight of uncertainty settling on his shoulders. He felt no ill intent, yet this man's presence felt like a test. A part of him wanted to retreat, back away from the strange encounter that had filled the air with tension. But another part, the one burning with dreams, urged him to stay on this path, to confront the unknown. "I'm ready," Mateo asserted, surprising even himself with the strength of his words. "Whatever comes next, I won't back down. I'll fight for my vision." The man's expression shifted, the polite facade cracking just slightly. "Very well. But know this: the world is not kind to dreamers who don't wield power. Are you prepared to make allies, to negotiate, to possibly betray your own for your vision?" Mateo's heart raced. The implication hit hard, a reality check he wasn't fully ready for. Allies? Betrayal? He thought of those miners, the family that had struggled alongside him. Before he could respond, the man leaned closer, a conspiratorial edge in his voice. "Help can come from unexpected places. Think wisely about your next steps then." Just as suddenly, the man stepped back, leaving Mateo bewildered. The cheers around him faded into a distant hum, his thoughts now tangled in webs of possibilities. What did he really want? And at what cost? Mateo's gaze swept across the crowd of hopeful miners, their faces filled with expectation, and he felt the weight of responsibility crush against him. The darkness of uncertainty loomed large, twisting his joy into a complicated dance of eager ambition and lurking dread. As he stood there, lost in thought, the sound of footsteps echoed behind him, especially one familiar tread that made his heart leap. Could it be someone from his past, here to join him on this journey? With a hopeful spark, Mateo turned to see who approached, wondering if this encounter would mark the beginning of a new chapter or a sharp detour. As Mateo turned, his breath caught in his throat. There, framed by the crowd and dust from the dry earth, stood Lily. Her familiar face, once a beacon of hope in his past, now brought a rush of emotions flooding back. She had always believed in him when he doubted himself. "Lily," he whispered, shock and joy intertwining within him. She stepped forward, her eyes bright with determination. He could see she had changed. A new fire sparked in her spirit that hadn't been there before. "I heard about the gathering," she said, her words filled with urgency. "I had to come. We need to talk." Mateo felt a rush of relief wash over him. "Yes, we do." But his eyes darted to the stranger, who was watching the exchange with an amused interest. "It's complicated. There's a lot going on." Lily paused, taking in the man's polished shoes and cold demeanor. "You're not the only one with dreams, Mateo. I've been working on something too," she said, her voice steady despite the whispers around them. "We can combine our efforts." The excitement in her words ignited something in Mateo, a sense of possibility. "What do you have in mind?" She stepped back, scanning the crowd, then leaned in closer. "I've been creating designs in secret, clothes that tell stories like the ones our families lived through. But I need your reach. You have the support out here. Together we could." Just as she spoke, the man in fine clothes interjected. "Forgive my interruption, but dreams require more than just passion." His tone was smooth, but the undercurrent of mockery was clear. "They require strategy and investment." Mateo felt the tension shift. "What do you know about our struggles?" he asked, his voice rising. This had become more than just a gathering. It was a pressure cooker of emotions and ambitions. "I know that dreams mean nothing unless they're backed by something real," the man replied, eyes glinting. "You want to create a legacy, Mateo? Then you must be prepared to pay the price. There's a ruthless world out there." Lily clenched her fists. "We don't need your judgment. We're not weaklings. We've fought for everything we have. And yet, the man continued, unfazed. Fighting isn't always enough. Remember, not all battles are fought in the open. Some require subtlety. You'll need allies with power. He let the words hang in the air, heavy with implication. Mateo felt the weight of those words settle into his gut. He glanced around at the miners' faces, their hope and resolve shining through the dust. I refuse to betray them. We can do this ourselves. Is that so? The man chuckled, but his laughter trembled slightly, revealing some vulnerability. Then I suggest you think carefully about how you plan to pull this off. The world thrives on exploitation and cruelty. Be prepared, Mateo. You may end up losing more than you gain. The crowd buzzed with uncertainty, but Mateo's heart pounded against his ribs. This was his moment to choose. Would he abandon his principles for the allure of influence, or could he forge his own path alongside Lily? Mateo took a deep breath, focusing on her unwavering gaze. Together we have a chance, he said, his voice steady and determined. We'll show them what we stand for. With a new fire igniting within him, he felt prepared to face the uncertain future. But he also knew that the greatest challenges were yet to come. As he scanned the crowd, Mateo saw more than just miners. He saw a community ready to rise. But as he felt a renewed sense of purpose, a striking thought pierced through. Was it truly possible to change a system built on power and greed from the inside? That question hung in the air, tinged with hope and fear, the looming specter of a decision that would define their journey. What cards would fate deal them next? Mateo's heart felt lighter as he took another look at Lily. She had always been a force of nature, but this version of her, standing boldly amidst the uncertainties, was almost radiant. There was an energy around her, a spark that could ignite flames in others. Let us go somewhere private, she urged, glancing around as the crowd continued to murmur. We can't discuss everything here. He nodded, sensing the urgency in her tone. They maneuvered through the throng, leaving behind the piercing eyes of the well-dressed man, though his words lingered like a bad taste in Mateo's mouth. Arriving at a small clearing behind a makeshift stall, they paused, catching their breaths in the sudden quiet. What did you mean by creating designs that tell stories? He asked, curiosity woven with admiration. Lily smiled, a genuine and warming sight that pulled at his heart. I've been inspired by the lives of our families, the struggles, the history, she explained, her hands moving animatedly. I want to weave their stories into our fabrics. Each thread carries meaning, a piece of us. With your connections, we could make something powerful, something that resonates beyond our small town. Mateo's mind raced with the possibilities. Like a movement, clothes that aren't just clothes, but symbols of resistance? Exactly, she responded, her voice rising with conviction. Imagine if we could open minds. If we made people feel the weight of our stories. If they could see us. This isn't just about fashion, it's about dignity. A future. He nodded, the vision starting to crystallize. Yet doubt wormed into his thoughts. But can we really compete? That man he's right about the power players. They let us into their world easily. Lily stepped closer, a fierce fire in her eyes. We're not trying to gain access to their world, we're creating our own. We build it together. Our way. We harness their greed against them, using our stories as weapons. Each garment can challenge their narrative. Mateo felt something shift inside him. Could it really be that simple? A part of him desperately wanted to believe. But what if we fail? Failure isn't the end, she replied, softly yet firmly. The fight itself transforms us. We can navigate setbacks. What's important is that we keep going. That we don't give up. He gazed into her eyes, seeing the resolve that had always drawn him in. You're right, he said at last. The moment lingered, charged with hope and anticipation. It felt like they were standing on the edge of something monumental. But just as their spirits lifted, an unexpected sound shattered the air. A shout echoed from the crowd. Mateo's heart sank as he turned to see chaos unfolding. A group of men in dark coats barreled through the gathering, their faces grim and determined. We're taking back what's ours. One of them shouted, raising a pickaxe high above his head. Fear rippled through the crowd as people began to scurry away, panic setting in. Mateo felt his stomach twist, uncertainty creeping back in. Had their plans been foolish? Was their fight about to become something violent? "Lily, we need to get everyone to safety," he urged. But as Mateo moved toward the crowd, something inside him felt different. He wasn't just a participant anymore, he was part of a rising tide. Fear mingled with the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Even if the storm comes, Mateo thought with steely determination, I won't let it take us down. With the chaos unfolding, he exchanged a quick look with Lily, and they both knew this fight was just beginning. But would they be able to rally the strength of their community, or would fear push them apart? The air was thick with tension, and Mateo's heart raced as he faced the impending conflict. Would they manage to stand united through the storm? The echoes of their determination rang clear, but the dark whisper of the unknown clawed at the edges. As destiny loomed with uncertainty, one question pulsed through his mind. What sacrifices would they have to make to protect their dreams? Mateo took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders as he faced the chaos unfolding around him. The shouts grew louder, a cacophony that echoed against the backdrop of uncertainty. Lily's hand found his, a clutch of solidarity that grounded him. "We can't let fear win," she said, her voice a fierce whisper. "We need to show them that we're stronger together." He glanced at the throng. People were pushing and shoving in panic. Confusion etched across their faces. Some stumbled, trying to find direction in the calamity. But the firm grip of Lily's hand jolted his resolve. Maybe this was the moment they needed, a moment that turned fear into defiance. "Gather everyone," Mateo shouted, surprising himself with the force of his voice. "We need to stand together. We have stories that matter. Stories that can change everything." Lily nodded and shouted too, her voice blending with his. "Listen up. We're not backing down. We have a message to share, and no one can take that from us." Some people stopped, drawn to their calls. They turned back, hesitant but curious. This flicker of bravery spread like wildfire, igniting sparks in others. Mateo saw a woman clutching her child, her own fear replaced with determination. Just beside her, an older man who had always kept to himself stepped forward, fists clenched, ready to stand. They formed a line, everyone, shoulder to shoulder. Mateo felt the sturdy wall of bodies beside him. It was a strange comfort, a collective heartbeat resonating with purpose amidst the chaos. The men in dark coats continued to advance, fueled by aggression. "Get out of our way. You don't belong here," one of them barked as they drew closer. "No," Mateo shouted back, stepping forward. "This is our home, our fight. We won't let you take it from us." His heart pounded, but so did the hearts of the others. Lily squeezed his hand harder. They were no longer just reacting to fear. They were standing for what they believed in. "What do we want?" Mateo shouted, feeling a surge of power. "Unity," the crowd echoed. "Will we back down?" "No." With each chant they stood firmer. The men, now fully within earshot, hesitated. They hadn't expected resistance like this. Looking back, Mateo could see fear etched on their faces, fear and confusion. Then, as if a mirror had shattered, the tide truly turned. Lily stepped up beside Mateo, fire in her eyes. "What does your strength mean?" she called out, challenging them. "Is it worth fighting against the very people who share this land? We're here to build, not to destroy." Mateo felt the tremor in his voice again as he added, "Each of us has a story that deserves to be heard. We're not here to take. We're here to uplift." The crowd seemed to swell, growing stronger with each heartbeat. They leaned into the words, clinging to the newfound strength in unity. The dark-coated men shifted uneasily, doubt settling in as they exchanged glances. "What are you afraid of?" Lily's voice rang clearer. "Are you afraid of our stories?" The shouts grew louder, a chorus of voices mixing with newfound confidence. The men were faltering now, seemingly unaware of how the tide had gut-punched their bravado. But just as the energy shifted, a loud crash shattered the rallying cry. Mateo turned abruptly to see a nearby stall overturned, chaos reigniting. Lily, we need to before he could finish. Another figure emerged from the darkness of the crowd, a woman whose face was familiar. It was Mateo's mother, eyes wide and fierce. Mateo, she called, her voice breaking through the noise like a lifeline. He felt disbelief wash over him, curiosity tinging the air. What is she doing here? He thought, just as a stir of people separated to let her through. The fight was far from over, but now, it was about to take an unexpected turn. Would Mateo's mother join their stand, or would she pull him back? The fire in his heart raced again, pulse quickening with uncertainty and hope. What new legacy might she bring into this tumultuous moment? Mateo! His mother's voice cut through the frenzy, a beacon in the storm. He had so many questions, but one look at her fierce determination silenced them. She pushed through the crowd, her presence steadying the chaos around them. Mom, what are you doing here? He managed to ask, heart racing. I heard the commotion, she said, urgency painted on her face. I was worried. I knew you'd be right in the middle of it. Lily glanced at Mateo, her grip on his hand tightening. She must have sensed the surge of emotions flooding over him, the blend of pride in his mother, concern, and an unyielding hope. Can you help us? Mateo asked, swallowing hard. His mother nodded with fierce conviction. Of course I can. But you need to listen to me. The dark-coated men were still looming, their voices a rumbling storm, but Mateo felt a strange sense of calm. We're standing together, Mom, he said, his voice gaining volume. We're telling our stories, showing that we belong here. This is a moment for all of us. Mateo's mother stepped up beside Lily, their resolve uniting like an unbreakable chain. Stories, she said, her voice sharp and powerful. That's what this is really about. Stories that break barriers and bring us together. We cannot let fear silence us. The people around them began to stir again, emboldened. Mateo watched as the crowd's energy shifted once more, faces now reflecting a mix of hope and defiance. The waves of fear that had once washed over them were retreating. Ever so slightly, Mateo felt the weight of what they were standing for, the dreams they carried, the sacrifices made, and histories that lived within each of them. You're right, Mom. If they expect us to cower, they've got another thing coming. He shouted, driven by an impassioned fire. Suddenly, a new voice emerged from behind the men in dark coats. What's your story, then? A young man challenged, stepping forward. His voice was demanding, and curiosity danced in his eyes, tainted with misunderstanding. Why should we listen? That question hung in the air, heavy with expectation. Mateo felt the faces in the crowd turn to him, their eyes searching for answers. This was where his voice needed to rise, not just for him, but for everyone standing behind him. We're more than our fears. We have dreams. Dreams of community. Mateo yelled back. I've seen my mother work night after night, holding our family together. I've seen kids finding hope in fleeting moments of joy. Our stories are the threads that weave us into this tapestry we call home. A murmur of agreement spread through the group. They were igniting each other as spirits, lighting the fuse of courage. Mateo stepped forward, a surge of adrenaline rushing through him. We are immigrants, workers, dreamers, fighters. Whatever you think about us, we're right here, standing together, refusing to be hushed. The dark-coated men seemed to falter again, their bravado teetering on the edge of confusion. His mother's eyes sparkled with pride, reflecting back the strength of the crowd. A collective heartbeat growing louder, echoing through the streets. But just as it seemed they would push through this moment, a loud voice shouted from the back. You think that just because you're shouting anyone cares? You don't belong. You think you can change everything? Mateo felt the heat rise in his cheeks, anger and determination surging together. As the crowd murmured, uncertainty licking at the edges of their confidence, he knew he had to respond. Change starts with us. Change begins now. It was powerful. It rattled the very air they breathed. He looked across the sea of faces, each one waiting, each pulse synchronized in a shared dream. A childhood friend of his stepped forward, raising a poster with the words "We belong" in bright bold letters. That was it. There was a bond that couldn't be broken. And just then, a loud siren echoed from afar, sending jolts through the crowd. What would happen next? Would the police come in a show of force? Or would they listen, drawn in by the passionate roar swirling around them? Mateo could feel a weight settle in his chest. This was a moment of truth. And as always, the outcome remained uncertain. The sirens wailed closer, a sharp reminder of the stakes laid bare before them. Mateo's heart raced, the beat echoing his growing anxiety. The crowd hung on the precipice of fear and resolve, and he could almost feel the weight of their collective breath held in anticipation. "Stay together," his mother urged, her voice commanding. Mateo caught a glimpse of her steely expression, unwavering in the face of chaos. He felt strength from her, a fierce warmth enveloping him. In that charged moment, fear could either splinter them apart or bind them together. Mateo's eyes met Lily's, and he saw the flicker of determination mirrored back. They couldn't let the sirens or the men in dark coats intimidate them. They had stories to tell, and they needed to be heard loud and clear. "If they want to know why we belong, we'll show them," he shouted, trying to rally the spirits around him. "This isn't just about who we are today. It's about the future we're building together." With that, he took a step forward, his voice steadying. "I'm not afraid anymore. Together, we are powerful." Lily squeezed his hand. "Yep. Together," she echoed, her voice rising with confidence. Around them, other voices began to rise, fusing into a chorus of solidarity. "We belong. We belong." It was a rhythmic chant, weaving itself through the crowd, gaining momentum, pulling more voices into the mix as the chant swelled. Mateo turned to face the dark-coated men. Their expressions shifted, confusion washing over them. What had initially seemed like a moment ripe for confrontation became instead a loud, unyielding declaration of identity and belief in their right to stand together. Then they appeared, a line of officers, badges reflecting the sunlight like harsh spotlights against the crowd. Mateo's heart sank. Would they see the power of unity or choose to quash it? "Don't back down," his mother urged, her voice weaving through the chants, warning like a firecracker flickering against the approaching storm. "Stand firm, everyone." Mateo instinctively shifted, feeling the electricity in the air. The sirens were blaring, mixing with their passionate cries. The officers halted, watching, waiting. This was a moment to break through, to show that they couldn't simply be dismissed. "Tell them why we're here," Mateo hollered, spurring those near him to speak. One by one, voices emerged. "My parents taught me to work hard and dream big," one young woman shouted, her eyes gleaming fiercely. "We are the future." A man stepped forward, clenching a banner, his hands steady. "I risked everything for a better life. This land, our stories bind us together." The dark-coated men exchanged glances, uncertainty swirling among them. Mateo could see hesitation creeping into their stony faces. "This is our community, our lives," he asserted, sending a ripple of energy through the crowd. He had never felt so alive, so on fire, swept up in the shared purpose of the moment. And that when the heavy hand touched Mateo's shoulder. An officer moved closer, his gaze firm yet curious. "What's happening here?" he asked, the tension in his tone a mixture of authority and intrigue. Mateo hesitated for a heartbeat, unsure of how to respond. Should he deflect, stand his ground, or try to reach this man with the same passion he saw in all those gathered? He took a deep breath, letting it course through him. "We're here to share our stories, our dreams. We're tired of being told we don't belong. We're all a part of this place." The officer's expression shifted, searching Mateo's eyes. In that moment, a thick silence enveloped them, tension palpable but also filled with possibility. What would happen next? Would the officer hear him? Would the crowd's courage transform this confrontation into understanding? The laughter of children playing nearby, the sound of their voices mixed in, and the rhythm of expectancy hung in the air. Mateo could sense a chance, an opportunity for transformation. But at what cost? This was just the beginning of an unfolding story where every word mattered, where every moment counted. The next move could change everything. As the officers stepped closer, uncertainty lingered in the air. Would they take a step toward understanding, or would barriers remain intact? This was only the start, and the intensity of what lay ahead ignited a flicker of hope within him. The officer's eyes narrowed, studying Mateo as if searching for something beneath the surface. The crowd held its breath. This was a moment of truth, a potential turning point that could shatter barriers or reinforce them. I'm just doing my job, the officer finally spoke, though his tone was softer now. Mateo could see the tightness in his shoulders relax just a notch. Then maybe your job should be to listen, Mateo replied, his voice steady. We're not criminals. We're families. We're the heartbeat of this community, and we deserve a chance to be heard. The officer took a step back, exchanging glances with his fellow officers. They looked unsure, their tight expressions contrasting sharply with the energy swirling around Mateo and his companions. The chant rang louder, filling the space between them. We belong. We belong. Lily squeezed Mateo's hand even tighter, her eyes alight with hope. They can feel our strength, she exclaimed, her voice a perfect blend of excitement and determination. A flicker of recognition passed across the officer's face. It was almost imperceptible, yet it carried weight. The moment hung in balance as he opened his mouth, seemingly preparing to respond. But just then an unexpected voice rang out from behind. Hey, you don't have to listen to them. It was an elder in the crowd, a local who had been there for years, his voice booming with authority. These kids are fighting for their lives. They're not alone. We stand with them. The crowd erupted, echoing the elder's proclamation. We stand with them. We stand with them. Each voice seemed to chip away at the wall of indifference that surrounded the officers. Mateo's heart raced even faster. This was it. They had the power, but would they use it wisely? The officer's stance relaxed further, his brow furrowing as he took in the scene. For the first time, Mateo noticed a flicker of empathy in the officer's eyes. What would happen if I chose to let you stay? The officer asked slowly, as if testing the waters. His authority was still wrapped in uncertainty, but the weight of his question felt lighter, filled with the hint of possibility. Mateo felt everything within him surge. Then we can show you who we are, he shouted, his voice rising above the crowd once more. We're artists, teachers, workers. We're the dreams of this city. There's so much that we can offer. More voices joined in, sharing their hopes, their dreams, and their stories. Mateo could feel the collective strength radiating through the crowd. The officers were beginning to see this moment as something different, something worth listening to instead of dismissing. Suddenly, the officer's expression shifted again, and he straightened up, a resolute decision brewing behind those once firm eyes. Maybe it's time for a new kind of job, he said quietly, almost to himself, but loud enough for Mateo to hear. One built on listening rather than policing. The silence fell again, but this time it felt charged with anticipation. Could this really be happening? Would they become partners in change rather than obstacles? Just then, a shout broke through the tension. Look out! They're coming! A voice cried from the back of the crowd, panic sparking anew. Mateo turned, his heart lurching. A group of more officers was advancing toward them, asserting their authority, ready to break up the gathering. The tension snapped back into place like a taut string ready to unravel. What do we do now? Mateo whispered to Lily, fear creeping back into his chest. But before she could respond, the elder stepped closer, positioning himself in front of the officers, arms raised to deflect the impending storm. We're not going anywhere. Stand together, he roared, and the crowd echoed him, voices harmonizing into a single powerful force. In that moment, it felt as if they stood on the edge of a pivotal moment. Would they stand firm in the face of overwhelming odds, or would fear scatter them like leaves in the wind? Mateo's heart thundered, the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily as he gazed into the oncoming storm, unsure of what the next moments would bring. Would they fight against this new wave of confrontation, or would they find a way to unite even further? The answer loomed ahead, just as pressing as the sirens that still pulsed in the distance. The clash erupted around them. Mateo felt his heart race like a drum. The tension surged, a pulse echoing through the crowd. Each heartbeat synced with the fervent cries of determination. He was glued to the spot, feeling the ghosts of fear and strength tugging at him. But in that moment, he remembered the faces of the miners, the sacrifices made, the glimmering hope that had ignited within their shared stories. "Stand united," he shouted, instinct gripping him as he surged forward. Lily squeezed his hand tighter, her spirit merging with his determination. They had come too far, faced too much to let fear take control now. The elder stood tall against the advancing officers. "We are here to share our stories. This is our home." His voice resonated, deep and commanding. It was a powerful declaration, fueling the fire within Mateo. Around him, more voices joined, a sea of defiance rising. "We belong. We are here." The chant exploded through the air like fireworks, crackling with energy and passion. Mateo watched as one officer hesitated, a glimmer of uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Listen to them," Mateo urged, his voice unwavering. "We're not criminals. We're families just like you." The moment hovered, charged with emotion, the noise of the world becoming distant as truth poured from their hearts. Suddenly, out of the thrumming chaos, a figure stepped from the shadows. It was the man in fine clothes, his expression unreadable. "You think hearts and stories can stop the inevitable?" he scoffed. "The world thrives on power and dominance. But hearts and stories connect us." Mateo shot back, his voice rising like a passionate anthem. "If we unite, we can reshape this." The man's brow furrowed, an internal battle waging behind his eyes. Would he dismiss them as others had? But before he could respond, the first officer, the one who had displayed a hint of empathy, stepped forward. "Perhaps it's time for a different approach," he began. Yet before he could complete his thought, the crowd roared, refusing to be silenced. Lily's eyes sparkled with hope. "What's your story?" she called to the officer, her voice soaring above the din. "Why don't you share it with us?" The officer hesitated, torn between authority and newfound understanding. It was the connection they sought. It resonated in the space between. "I grew up in a family that fought to make it too," he admitted, the strength of his voice wavering. The crowd shifted, murmurs of recognition spreading like wildfire. They were beginning to see the man, to understand that each of them had a story, something they fought for. "Then join us," Mateo cried out, invigorated. "Together we can create change." For the first time, the officer smiled, tipping the balance like a teetering scale. But chaos broke through again. The other officers advanced. "This is illegal assembly. You must disperse," they barked, voices crackling like the snapping of twigs underfoot. "No," cried the elder, arms still raised. "This isn't just noise, it's a call for change." Mateo felt the surge of anger. "We want to be silenced. The stories of our lives matter." Voices echoed back, urging others to join. "They matter. They matter." A new wave of energy flowed through the crowd, emboldened by their unity. "Your turn," Mateo shouted, glancing at the first officer, challenging him. "What will you do?" In that moment, Mateo saw the officer's resolve deepen. "I can't stand by and watch," he declared, stepping away from his fellow officers. "I want to help." Gasps emerged from the crowd as new hope surged through the air. The man in fine clothes smirked, disbelief flashing across his features. "You think this changes anything? It's just a fleeting moment." Mateo stepped closer, his voice unwavering. "It's a moment of awakening. This is our legacy. We will create a place where everyone belongs." As uncertainty crumbled around him, the officers retreated, retreating before the chorus of voices that resonated with undeniable clarity. But just as victory seemed within reach, a loud crack echoed the sound of a baton slamming against the ground. An order was shouted from behind as more enforcement arrived, thick tension filling the air once more. Panic urged at the edges again. "Stay together," Mateo urged, though fear whispered in his ear. We won't let this end here, Lily shouted, grasping Mateo's hand tightly, melding their spirits into one. Everyone, stay strong, Mateo called, raising his arms, feeling the energy of hopes and dreams surge to the surface. This is our time. Fingers reached toward the sky, memories stirring beneath their skin, hopes igniting. As the officers advanced, Mateo and Lily stood at the forefront. Look around, he urged, voice ringing, every heartbeat synchronizing into a melody of resilience. We are not alone. We are a community dreamers ready to rise. In that pivotal moment, they stood as a unified front against the coming storm. Chaos swelled, but hope surged brighter. The sirens faded into the background, reverberating through the air like echoes of change. Each story weaving together to form an unbreakable bond, powerful, defiant, unwavering. Their dreams were alive, a vivid tapestry of resilience and unity, ready to reshape a future they each belonged to. As the world around them shifted, each beat of their hearts resonated with triumph. This isn't the end, Mateo proclaimed as they leaned in together, a family forged in fire and unwavering resolve. This is only the beginning. The crowd roared, voices blending into a single pulsating heartbeat of determination, and hope resounding through every corner of Gold Creek. They were unstoppable. So now, as the sun sank behind the mountains, a new legacy rose. With every shared story, every struggle, every stitch of fabric turned into a garment of belonging, they began to weave a brighter future. And in those moments, dreams of the past began to unfurl into reality. All it took was the courage to stand together. Feel the magic of their journey, and you too can be a part of shaping the future. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it really helps us reach more people. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, it matters to us. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is your chance to make a difference. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.